What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of EOS. Shout out to everybody that's rocking with me, all my new subscribers. Big shout out to Christina Randall for having me on her channel. Today, I want to touch down on a major subject. A ton of people have been asking me about this subject. A lot of people have also asked me about it due to my Instagram. So for this episode, I specifically want to speak on gangs. Florida State prison gangs, street gangs, everything involving gangs in general. Because if you've watched any of my videos about the youth offenders, you already know it's gangland in there. You know what I mean? Almost every single person in there is a part of something. When you go to Florida State prison, if you are not associated with anything whatsoever, normally what's going to happen is the people you came to prison with from your county jail, you know what I mean? Like, you'll have people from the same city. You guys will stick together and have each other's backs because there's already groups when you get there. So in a sense, you're not really at a disadvantage, but you somewhat are, because anytime you're new in a prison, you're new. That's a disadvantage, period. Other people already have their names solidified. They already have things going on. They have access to weapons. They know what COs they can get away with things with. You know what I mean? So when you come to prison and you have no one, it makes it that much more intense. You can't trust anybody, and you somewhat feel like the whole dorm is an enemy until proven otherwise. You're watching everything. So normally you'll stick together with the kids from your city. In my case, I was already gang affiliated before I ever went to prison. So naturally, I'm gonna stick with my people, you know what I mean? But also, I went to prison from Tampa, Florida. So anybody from Tampa, as long as you were solid people, I was rocking with you. And that's how it was. And that's how it is in most cases. You know, even if you're gang affiliated, you still rock with your home team because those are the people from your city. You might know them, or I might not know you personally, but I know other people that you know as well. You know, we might have a mutual friend. Now, when you get to prison is another level. Prison has different groups and different gangs other than Blood, Crip, Latin King, folks, like outside of that. So Tampa specifically has MPI, which is money, power, respect. It's not necessarily a gang, but that's how they would classify it, you know, in the DOC. Now, with our DC numbers, which is your prison number that's on your ID, Tampa gets a T, Orlando gets an X. Orlando has a prison gang called X-Men because their DC number starts with X's. And it's literally just everyone that's from Orlando. You know what I mean? And it's not that if you go to prison from Orlando, you're automatically an X-Men. You have to become an X-Men. You know, they're going to want to TOH you. They're going to want to test you and make sure you're going to rock. But if you go not gang affiliated, you're most likely going to be an X-Men. St. Pete, they get the letter I. So you're going to be an INET. INET stands for something. I'm not going to say what it stands for just because, you know, the N is a derogatory term. It's real, eat together. And you can put that together yourself. You know what I mean? But the I would be for, and this is a sign language I, the I would be for the DC number. Now, Miami, West Palm, and Broward County, they had a whole gang called DSG, which is Down South Gangsters. If you were from one of those three, Miami, West Palm, or Broward, you could rock with DSG. But you had so many gangs coming out of that area already. So you have a ton of the Zoes are all coming from specifically down south, southern Florida. a ton of Bloods, and a ton of Latin Kings. There's not really too much else that's coming from down there. Versus Orlando, St. Pete, you had Bloods, you had Crips, you had a whole mix of people. But everyone would still somewhat associate with their home team. You know what I mean? With whoever was your home team. 850, that's the area code for Tallahassee. Anybody that's from up that way, they were rocking 850. Jacksonville, Florida. Jacksonville, you had the Cutthroats. To my knowledge, as far as Cutthroat goes, is Cutthroat actually came from New Orleans. And when Katrina hit, a lot of people from Louisiana moved to Jacksonville, Florida. And that's also what boosted the murder rate in Jacksonville, Florida, because there was some type of law in Louisiana that if you were arrested on a murder charge and they couldn't convict you within 90 days or something like that, it was almost like a speedy trial. You were automatically released, and there were so many people beating murders off of that. When they came to Jacksonville, Florida, you know, they brought that with them. And it just, the murder rate skyrocketed in Jacksonville. Almost every kid I met from Jacksonville in prison had 10 or better as far as years go. Like, the kids that I knew with the most time were also from Jacksonville. It's a crazy city. But the Cutthroats, you know, they throw up the K, they throw up the fours. That's Cutthroat. You know what I mean? Jacksonville, Florida. They also have different groups like 21 Guns. You have a lot of Bloods that come out of Jacksonville. Not too many other gangs, though, that I've noticed as far as like Crip, GD, or anything like that. In the state of Florida, northern Florida, like Tallahassee, Panama, areas like that, the Panhandle, that's mainly, from what I know, where they have the most of the GDs. Now, when you get to Central Florida and below, everything is pretty much under the 5. Everything is pretty much Blood and Latin King. You do have a ton of Crips, St. Pete, Orlando, Florida. And, you know, from my experience, Blood and Crip really doesn't even have beef like that in Florida. Everything's more on a money tip. If you get out of bounds with the money, it doesn't matter what you are. You know, pressure can go your way. But as far as Blood and Crip, it wasn't like an on-site thing. You know what I mean? And then when you get down to Southern Florida, that's when ZMF really comes into play. You got all the Zoes down there. You know, there's other stuff down there too, but it's not as big as everything else, as some of the major names. Now with the Serenos, the 13s, you find them mostly in the country, in like country areas, like in Tampa, you know, wherever outside of the city, where you have all the trailer parks and, you know, the real rednecks, that's where you would find the Mexicans, and they're generally going to be 13s. I never personally met any 14s in Florida State Prison. But it's like I said, when you go in there, you pretty much clicking up with something. And it's not always out of fear, but it usually is. Most people, you know, when you go to prison, if you're not already in a gang, most people join. Most people also aren't respected for joining in that sense. Like, I'm not going to say everybody isn't respected, but if you came from the street and word traveled to the prison that you were already rocking that on the street, you had a different level of respect than someone that just came to prison and decided to pick who they're going to be with. Because when it comes to prison, as far as Blood goes, no one wanted to be a Blood at Sumter or Lancaster CI. Like, most people weren't volunteering to become Bloods because we were always at war. The only time they wanted to become one was when we was in a position of power, when we ran the whole dorm, or we were just taking people off the compound. So when I hit Lancaster, no GDs were allowed on the compound. Period. You might get put in the dorm for 15, 20 minutes before you get hit up. They weren't letting them on the compound. The Kings weren't having it. They didn't want them. And, you know, you would have some kids come through and stand on it and be like, yo, I'm not folding my flag, and they would get hit up or they would hit someone up before they got hit. You had some kids that would come and completely fold their flag and say they're not GD anymore. You had some kids that would come and join a different gang. So what I viewed a lot was you had a ton of people that would flip flop. We call it pancaking. You would go from one gang to another when it's convenient to you. And to me, if you've done that once, it isn't a good look. I can understand if maybe you were on the street and the guy that brought you in wasn't real, or a situation like that, and you feel like it wasn't loyalty to begin with, and you found something else to get with and it was actually official. I can understand that to a degree, but you got kids that when all their brothers was getting hit up, they would just decide they're not that anymore and then try to get with whoever was in a position of power. So if the GDs were getting taken off, they want to become a Latin king. You know what I mean? If the Zoes were getting taken off, they want to become a Blood. If Bloods were getting flipped, they wanted to become a Zoe. And it was just, you had so many people just bouncing around to different sets and different groups. The reason it was accepted is because people want numbers. There's power in numbers, and there's always going to be power in numbers. And, if a kid steps to us and he's like, hey, I don't want to be this anymore, I want to rock with you guys. All right, well, if you want to be one of us, you got to go take him out. And when he does that, he's a crash dummy. You know what I mean? He wants to prove loyalty to us. We already feel like he doesn't have any loyalty, so we send him on a crash dummy mission. If he fails, he fails. If he doesn't, he doesn't. It is what it is. We win either way. It's not really a big deal to us. You know what I mean? We might write down fake knowledge for them to learn and give it to them so they think they know something official. You got so many kids that's getting played not official at all. When I was at Lancaster, a ton of the Kings that were there were Bloods on the street. A ton of the Zoes that were there were Bloods on the street. Now, with the Kings, pretty much anyone that was Spanish, if you went to Lancaster at the time I was there, you were going to be a king. It wasn't really an option. They pretty much forced it on you, you know what I mean? But they had a solid group. They had some solid guys within that group, And some of them, I feel like it was, when they went to prison, it was more on a racial thing. Like, why were you this? You should be this, And a lot of them fell to peer pressure. A lot of them stood strong and still represented whatever they were beforehand. And some of them didn't. Some of them just became whatever they thought was in a position of power. Like I said, some people are forced. They're like, yo, if you don't become this, you're getting hit up. And that's what it was. I've seen people not from Tampa repping MPI, which, there's a couple people that's MPI that's not from Tampa and they're official, but it's so rare. It's like someone from Miami being an X-Men. Like, you don't have an X on your DC number. You're not from Orlando. Why are you an X-Men? It doesn't make sense. But there's some cases when, you might have someone from Miami and the only person that stuck up for him is a kid from Orlando. And now he has a loyalty to that kid because that kid showed loyalty to him. And there's situations like that, but the majority of the time it's fake, bro, because you're not going to go back to Miami talking about you're an X-Men. They're going to look at you like you're crazy. It's not even going to sound right. You know what I mean? So the majority of the gang banging inside of Florida State Prison is watered down. It's not official. It's watered down. A lot of people got fake knowledge. A lot of people can't show ties to the street. Like, they can't tell you who they know in the street. And if they can tell you who they know in the street, it usually doesn't go past that. It usually doesn't leave Florida. Now, everybody knows Blood, Crip, GD, King, Sereno, all these different gangs, none of them started in Florida. Not one of them. So if you're representing that and you're representing that from the street, you should be able to show how you have a connection to wherever it originated from. You know what I mean? With Blood, it could be either New York or California. I won't speak on everyone else because it's not really my business to speak on their origins, but with Blood, it's either Cali or New York. You know what I mean? And you have a lot of people that can't do that. So you have a lot of people that almost like renegades, make up their own rules, live and move by their own policies, and all of that plays a part into the Florida prison politics. Like I said in other videos, you might go to one compound where you have a gang that has a rule there's no homosexual activity. You might go to another compound and that same gang is engaging in homosexual activity. Snitching is never allowed, period. That's not something that's like, oh yeah, you were good, you were allowed to snitch in that. No, it doesn't go like that. But the homosexual activity is big in Florida state prisons. Everybody knows it, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of gangs that shouldn't be participating in it that stop participating in it, and they'll come home and act like it never happened. And that's why I say a lot of people don't have ties to the street. Because if you're participating in that and you have ties to the street, word is going to get back. And when you get out, you're most likely going to be killed. So that's how you can tell a lot of things are very watered down in the state of Florida. You know what I mean? But like I said, it's gangland. It's nonstop war. It's nonstop clicking up. But I'm going to tell you right now, there is a difference between doing your time in a gang and doing your time as a neutron. A neutron is a neutral, someone that isn't affiliated, someone that is from a city, and they may hang out with guys from their city, but they are not putting a title on their name besides their first and last name. They don't want to be in a gang. They don't want to be affiliated. They don't want to be obligated, period. They don't want to go for none of that lone wolf, solo, by yourself. I got the utmost respect for anybody that goes in there and does that, period. Because 9 times out of 9, your time is going to be harder than anyone else's time, period. You're going to be tested in every single dorm that you go to, in every single prison that you go to, because everyone knows you're rocking by yourself. So you might have a gang and there's 10 of them, but they're all weak as hell. You might have you just one deep, but you strong. But that is going to be tested repeatedly because every single gang is going to try to extort you. The difference between a neutron and a gang member is really that, is the extortion. They're going to want to extort you because you're not affiliated. Versus me, if I go in there and I present myself as a gang member, I might be at war with someone in this dorm or everyone in this dorm, which means that nobody is trying to extort me. They just want to hit me up. So the level of violence already elevates when you're a gang member because it's, you might get put into a dorm where one of your people just hurt someone bad in here and everybody in here wants revenge and they're going to take that out on you. Versus if you're a neutron, there's nothing attached to you. There's no past attached to you. When you're in a gang, what a lot of people don't understand is I am a representation of my group and my group is a representation of me. If you do not represent me correctly how you're supposed to, I am inclined to hurt you and vice versa. That's how it goes for pretty much anyone. When you decide to be a part of a group, you are a representation of that group. When you're by yourself, there is no one that represents you except you. So in that sense, it's a bit better because if anyone makes a mistake, it's you. No one can make a mistake for you, if that makes sense. Because there's cases when you might get hit up because one of your brothers messed up or did something crazy in another dorm. If my brother cut someone in another dorm, I might get cut because I didn't hear it happen first. The enemy heard it happen first, and then they got me. But with the neutrons, you have everybody trying you. Everyone's trying to get at you. And you have people, I've seen it. I was actually with this one kid from Jacksonville, Florida. And he came into the dorm. And I actually went to Lancaster with him. I talked to him. He was a soft-spoken kid. Turned out he was a boxer. He's got belts, you know what I mean? He can fight real good. And when he got TOH, he beat down the first person that tried him. I mean, ridiculously. Like, just his hands was so fast. I don't think he got hit. It was ridiculous. It was just so fast and executed to perfection. You could tell he trained. And everyone in the dorm was like, what just happened? You know what I mean? You have kids that will hold it down, that will, get poked up, whatever crazy will happen to them, beat up, knocked out, beat with locks, stabbed, whatever, they won't tell. They'll heal themselves up and they'll keep it pushing. And when you have someone at that point, I'm not going to lie, a lot of gangs reach out to that person. They see you solid because you got so many kids that come in trying to rep gangs that aren't solid. So it goes back to what I said with I am a representation of my group and my group is a representation of me. What people will try to do in prison is come to prison and claim something thinking that that group will get them respect without having to put in any work. Oh, I'm going to say I'm a blood because I know bloods are well known and people will be scared of me if they hear I'm a blood because people are scared of them. It doesn't work like that at all. So you got most of these kids coming in talking about their gang members and they're soft, they get hit up, whatever, they get X'd out. Then you got some kids that come in as neutrons and show they got hot made out of steel, and people reach out to them like, yo, do you want to be a part of this? Why don't you come home to this? You won't have to deal with this. Some of them do. I've seen a neutron come in and he was TOH and he wanted to be a part of the Bloods. He wanted to rock with us. We let another gang TOH him. And we spoke to that gang and we said if he passes, he's going to rock with us. They beat him bad, poked him up a little bit and all. Nothing too crazy. We made sure it didn't go too far, but we watched what happened to him. And he passed. Immediately after we took care of him, you know what I mean? He became one of us. And it wasn't a crash dummy. He was official at that point, you know what I'm saying? He put in work and he actually had ties to the streets. His family was all Bloods. He just never was brought into it, you know what I mean? And at that point, we found a solid kid. He wanted to be a part of us. And that's what happened. And you got some kids that will get these offers and deny it. And they'll get hit up for denying it. Like, hey, we want you to be one of us. Nah, I'm good, bro. Okay. Now you're out of there. You know what I mean? Everybody wants numbers. Everybody wants strength. Everybody wants power. And that's all it's about in the YOs, bro. Everybody's just clicking up and just going to war, causing violence. But what's crazy is a lot of these kids in the YOs have a lot of time. When they go to adult camp, that gang that they might have been a part of in the youth offenders, it won't fly in adult camp. As crazy as it sounds, well, maybe it doesn't sound crazy because a lot of people never heard of a white blood, but here I am. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to say it sounds crazy, but there was white Zoes, white boys repping ZMF. Blood is a gang. Zoe is it's more of a culture thing. You know what I mean? You're supposed to be Haitian, And you have Latin kings. I knew blacks that were Latin kings. I knew whites that were Latin kings. Generally, the whites had some form of Italian in them, or it could be, Portuguese, Spaniard, anything, Spanish, anything that was considered Latin. And they were good. And, the blacks that were accepted into Latin kings, they were from the islands. So you got the 5 islands. You got Puerto Rico, you got Cuba, Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Jamaica. It's really only 4 islands, but it's considered 5. Just because of DR and Haiti. And, if you were from any of those islands, they would become Latin kings with no issue. But white Zoes is not going to happen in the adult prisons. They're not going to go for that. You're going to be viewed as a crash dummy. You know what I'm saying? It's just, I've never seen one that had respect and openly was representing that. You know what I mean? It was more or less like a protection thing, and that's just what it was. In my case, I was already affiliated from the street. I ran into people that knew me and knew the people I knew from the street. So a lot of things were validated for me. It played out differently for me. But not only that, no one ever told me to do anything. I wouldn't listen. You're not telling me, people are under the assumption that if someone tells you something, you have to do it. That is not how Florida politics work. Florida politics are very renegade-like. Everybody wants to be their own boss, and that's pretty much the reason why there's no unification and there's no actual politics, is because no one listens to anyone. You know what I mean? It's just a free-for-all, and it's madness. Sometimes you'll have people that have respect and they can call shots to a certain extent, but that doesn't mean everyone's going to listen. And because I'm white, I wasn't going to listen because of the fact that I felt if someone's going to try to take advantage and use me as a crash dummy, this is how they're going to do it. So if you want me to do something, you come with me. If you don't want to come with me, don't ask me. If you keep asking me, I'm going to hit you up because I'm going to feel like you're eventually going to try to hit me up for not listening. And that's how I rocked. And that goes for the youth offenders to the adult camp. You know what I mean? When I hit the adult camp, the head blood of the adult camp lived above my cell. And we were close. So no one was telling me to do nothing. You know what I'm saying? And he was a part of me going home. He made sure I didn't have to do anything that would keep me inside of prison. But you definitely have people that rock out, not joining gangs, solid as they come. 2 examples. Go on Lockdown 23-1. Shout out to Death. He just interviewed 2 guys from Sarasota. Held it down by themselves. You know what I'm saying? And it's like he was saying in his videos as well. Just because you're not in a gang doesn't mean you won't affiliate with people that are in gangs. So you might meet solid people from different groups and organizations. And that goes for anyone, myself included. Like TK, he's an Unforgiven. I don't rock white. I don't rock under a swastika banner or anything like that. But I would rock behind TK because he is a solid individual and I respect him. Period. I would rock behind Bimba, who is also a part of a different organization. But that's how it was. So you might be a neutron, but you're cool with a blood. And if you get into it with some other person, the bloods are going to go in behind you. Because that blood you're cool with, they're going to go in behind him. Vice versa. If you're a neutron and you're cool with a Crip, that Crip is going to go behind you and all the Crips are going to follow behind him. So just because you're a neutron doesn't mean that people won't rock with you. They won't rock with you until you've been proven solid, until you've shown that you have heart, you're willing to rock by yourself, then other solid people will interact with you. Real is going to recognize real no matter what. We don't have any racial boundaries or gang boundaries or anything like that. Now, if war breaks out and you're cool with a Crip and you're cool with a Blood and they're going to war, best bet is just to stay up out of that, because if you get involved, you're going to get hit up about it. You know what I mean? And that can also lead to neutrons getting hit up. Guilty by association. So even if you're not in a gang, you can still be thrown in the mix with gang politics. It doesn't really matter, honestly. Everything is just so clicked up. And then you have people that will automatically just assume. They won't even ask you. If they see a T on your tag, you know, a T on your DC number, they're going to assume you're from Tampa. They're going to assume you're either MPI or Blood or a King. They might hit you up just off of that. And, you know, vice versa. If you come into our dorm and we think you're from Palm Beach or Broward County, we're going to assume you're a Zoe. And we might hit you up just off of that. You know what I mean? It's gangland in there. Everybody's clicking up with something. And, you know, how, like I've said in other videos, officers will favor certain gangs. Officers, they don't try to stop the gang activity. They put opposite gang members in the cells together. They put opposite gangs in the dorms together. You know, B dorm had B1 and B2. B1 was a Zoe house when I got put in there. B2 was a Blood house. Why would you put me in B1? You know what I mean? I was already in the computer as a documented gang member, so they knew what it was. But then there's also times when they don't know. And you're not supposed to speak up and tell them. You're not supposed to be like, oh, I'm a Blood. Can you put me in this dorm instead? You know, you're going to be considered soft and you were scared. You're supposed to go wherever you go. I went into B1. But it's just the environment that is created by the correctional officers. It adds fuel to the fire. They're not doing anything to prevent these gangs from being in contact with each other. They're not preventing these gangs from going to war. It's tough, you know what I'm saying? It's just a lot of unwritten politics, really. I swear it would be more easy if everything was just written out. If we're not supposed to go here, we're not supposed to go there. and you know we respect it and the COs respect it. When we used to shower at Lancaster, each shower head was under a different gang, and if you didn't know which one it was, you might get hit up. But at the same time, no one's telling you which is what. No one's just gonna run up to you and be like, hey, this is the layout, this is how it works, follow the rules, or get hit up with the consequences. So if you're a neutron and there's 5 shower heads and all 5 of them are taken up by 5 different gangs, you don't really have an option to shower except for when everyone else is done showering. You still might need permission from that group. Like, hey, can I use y'all shower head? Because if you go on the blood shower head and the bloods ain't done showering, you got 2 more bloods that need a shower, you're gonna get hit up in the shower. Like, you're not even gonna get out of the shower. So it's intense how things run. And at the same time, because the politics are so loose, I feel that's a whole nother reason people get involved with these things. Because once you have some form of a structure, even though it's loose, it's still a structure. It's more than what you had already coming in as a neutral person. But I knew some neutral people that had respect. I knew some neutral people that were at a different YO prison and got so much respect in that prison that when they came to the next one, they didn't really have to do anything. They didn't have to go through anything because a lot of the people that were there knew that person and would be like, nah, he's good, bro. I seen what he went through at the last spot. He ain't nobody touching him. If you touch him, we're gonna go in about that. He has respect off my face. You know what I'm saying? So there were people that would stick up for certain people that have earned their respect and just wanted to do their time. But like I said, the people that rock like that by themselves, you're going to go through it harder than anyone else. So gang banging, it's not something you have to do or you're forced to do. It's not something I even recommend unless you've already been a part of that on the street. Because that is the most authentic version, is when you're a part of that on the street. And this is the main reason I wanted to speak on this. Is people are looking at my Instagram and saying, oh, I'm throwing up gang signs, I'm this and that. I have 500 tattooed on my forehead. What I am and represent is tattooed on my face. It is tattooed on my throat. You may not be able to understand the symbolisms or break down what they mean, but everything I represent is pretty much out in the open, and I don't plan on stopping it. I don't plan on not representing it, because at the same time, as much negative as I've done, there's positive in everything. There's yin and yang. I believe the only way you're going to reach the youth and reach gang members, which is really the point of this channel, you know, if I can unify the gangs inside of Florida and stop the violence, we can focus on the Department of Corrections as the issue. Make a change through that way. But at first, we need to unify the gangs, because if we try to make a change in the DOC and the DOC is like, well, why would we change these rules when all they do is kill each other? All right, let's solve that issue first. Let's unify the gangs in prison. Let's bring some Zoes on this channel. Let's bring some Kings on this channel, some 13s on this channel, everybody. Because out of every single gang, I always found one person I respected, whether they were my enemy or not. There was always someone I respected, and I respected how they stood their ground on what they believed in. Period. If we can unify these people, we take away that excuse by the Department of Corrections. All right, they haven't done anything to each other in this amount of time. Why is there still these issues? Why has nothing but changed? Why has nothing changed yet? I feel the only way to reach an active gang member is to be an active gang member. Like I've said in other videos, when I grew up and I listened to youth speakers, or when I was in the, the juvie, and they would have people come in and talk to us. Oh, I'm an ex-gang member. Oh, I'm an ex this. I'm an ex. You're a used to be. You're a has-been. You're a was. I don't want to hear anything from you because you're not actively participating in these things, and I don't know the reason why you're no longer that anymore. You know, you could have snitched, you could have been scared, whatever. I feel that gang members are only going to respect active gang members. And those are the ones that can make a difference in society. If you look at Nipsey Hussle, the reason his death was so powerful was because of how positive his message was. And he unified gangs that have been enemies for 30, 40 years. But he was killed at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? He was killed. But his message and what he stood for will live on forever. If every single person that's in a gang decides to change their life and leave the gang behind, then that gang will never stand for anything but negative. And a lot of people don't have enough knowledge to know about the positives within gangs. Why they started, how they started, what they became, the reason they became that. The West Coast and the East Coast are two very, very different places. The reasons gangs started on both sides started for two very different reasons, because there was generational gaps between them. You have the late 60s, early 70s on the West Coast. You have the early 90s on the East Coast. Two completely different times, two completely different things going on. So the motivation and the reasoning behind starting them were different. But it's like my brother Goo told me. Everybody in a gang is a shooter or wants to be a shooter. But when you get shot, how many brothers do you have in your gang that are doctors and can heal you? How many brothers do you have in your gang that are lawyers that can get you out and fight the case that you currently have now? It's pretty much unheard of. So what we need is, we don't need shooters. We need people that can solidify us as a group and better each other. You know what I'm saying? We don't need to just keep having these little gang members that all they know how to do is shoot and stab. That doesn't do anything. We're all stuck in the same position. Everybody does that in prison. Everybody's violent in prison. How many people are smart though? How many people can sit down and help you with your legal work? How many people can inspire you to go another route? If you wasn't what I am, you couldn't inspire me, period. It isn't going to happen. I'm not going to listen to you in the same way I listen to Goo. Goo is given 50 years for each robbery, totaling 400 years. They ran it concurrent. He gets out in 2057. I'll let y'all do the math as to how old he would be if he got out at that release date. You know what I mean? But everything that he said to me stuck with me. So why is it that I can't be a blood and do positive? Why would that be used against me? When I'm throwing things up or when I'm representing my people, I'm representing my people that made sure that I went home knowing that I was 20 years old about to get out and turn 21, and they didn't want to see me get killed or kill somebody before I went home. That's loyalty. I'm holding down the people that held me down, that when my family didn't send me any money and I had nothing to eat and all I wanted to do was cause violence and extort people, they sat me down and said, hey, yo, bro, my people just sent me money. It ain't much. I got 2 soups, but we're going to split it. I got 1 soup, but we're going to split it. That's how it was. You know what I'm saying? When we had nothing, we had each other. That's loyalty. Period. That's loyalty. You know, we were in a very negative space and we had to do a lot of negative things. But now I'm in a position to turn this into a positive, and I can make a change inside of those prisons so that my people do not need to go through those negative situations anymore. If I can change that, then I can change the gang culture within these prisons, and that will change the gang culture within these streets. So that's the reason why I wanted to specifically speak on gangs, speak on my behalf and what I believe in and what I'm actually trying to do. I don't plan on folding my flag and saying I'm reformed and I'm not doing this anymore. No, there's none of that. I'm still representing what I am 110%. And if my brothers have done negative things, I stand behind that. If my brothers are doing positive things, I stand behind that. Because out of everything, there's a yin and a yang, there's a good and a bad. But what I'm saying out of my own mouth, so that there's no confusion, is I am trying to bring this into a positive direction. I am trying to take something that is negative or has been viewed as negative and make it a positive. The people that show love and loyalty to me, I am not going to stop showing love and loyalty to them. Period. I've said it before, for anyone that wants to join a gang, I don't believe you should. I don't believe there's really any logical reasons to join a gang on the street unless it's something that is in your neighborhood. And it's only in your neighborhood because your neighborhood is most likely in a poor area where violence is already happening, and you guys stick together to help each other because you're in the same situation that we were in inside of prison. And a lot of kids that go to prison don't come from these dark places on the street. Not everybody's coming from the project in Section 8. Not everybody's coming from the struggle. You got kids that come from the suburbs and go to prison, and this is their first time getting thrown into a war. When the most of us were going to war on the streets already. So when you're thrown in that environment, they join these gangs because this is their first time going through a struggle, and nothing feels better than having someone to go through it with you that has your back. So if you're not in an environment like that on the street, there's no real reason for you to join any of these things. You don't need to just claim something thinking you're going to get a reputation from it. No, you have to build that reputation. And when you build that reputation, you have to sacrifice. And when I say sacrifice, you have to sacrifice your own blood. You have to be willing to be hurt. You have to be willing to put in pain. Because those are the type of things that happens in those areas. You know what I'm saying? But if we can change this into a positive movement and unify different groups, especially within the prisons, we can do so much more than what we're doing already. If you're already a part of it and your name holds weight, you can be making the same difference that I'm trying to make. I'm not telling little kids to join gangs. I'm not throwing things up so that people can just follow me and pretend to be doing the same thing I'm doing. Nah, that's not why I'm doing it. But, I mean, if you really think about it, with the rap culture, the hip-hop culture, almost every rapper coming out nowadays is in a gang. So you have all these little suburban kids throwing gang signs up already. They're already doing it, regardless of the fact of who they're looking at as their idol. But they're already looking at gang members and thinking that gang life is cool. So what if we can change how people view that? We know these kids in the suburbs are going to throw up gang signs. We know these kids in the hoods are going to want to be a part of it. Well, what if I can change what they're looking up to? You're not looking up to a shooter. You're looking up to someone that's changed the whole movement for the better. When you throw that gang sign up, it doesn't represent all the people that have been killed and we're just showing off about it. It represents how far we've come from that. You know what I mean? And I hope people can understand this message. I hope people can respect this message. I hope everyone's just able to take it in because, if you don't take the time to educate yourself about something, specifically gangs and why gangs are and how they operate and how prison operates and everything like that, there's just really no reason to speak on it, and a lot of people won't speak on it. But I'm taking that time to address trolls, address just genuinely interested people, address people that had no idea these are the reasons why these things play out, address questions, you know what I mean? People are asking me, why am I still a part of this, Just because you're in a group doesn't mean that you can't get a job. And I mean, look at what I'm doing for my people already through this YouTube channel and through this platform. I'm bringing not only my brothers, but I'm bringing on other gang members that I respect and have done time with and giving them the same platform that I have right now. You know what I mean? I'm extending that same hand that Lockdown 23-1 and Christina Randall extended to me. And I'm extending it to people that need it the most. People that are coming home into society and coming back into these same dangerous neighborhoods. And I'm saying, hey, look, before you get bored or before you get broke or before something negative happens to you, come on this channel. I'm going to show you how many people are willing to support you. And I'm going to give you the same feeling that I got when I got my GED. When I went home, when I got my first job at Dunkin' Donuts and I had my little visor, I was proud. And I was proud for all of the right reasons. I'm doing something right. I'm doing something for the betterment of myself. And that's what I'm trying to do for them by bringing them on this channel. Introducing them to positivity they've never felt before. So I hope I hope this clears up a lot of questions and concerns that a lot of people have been having. Anybody that wants to ask me any questions, definitely reach out to me in the comments, reach out to me on Instagram. More than happy to get more in depth with you. And if there's something that you want me to get into more detail on specifically, definitely let me know. But like I said, I appreciate everybody that's rocking with me. Y'all stay rocking with me. Till next time.